What up, Zach?
Hey, Sam.
So you know why I like doing this show?
What do you like? Wait, what was the question?
So do you know why I like doing this show? I'm going to go ahead and answer the question because you and I are friends in real life, not just in the show that we make.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk a lot to each other. And we often could pick a topic, say, man, we're going to talk about this thing. We're really excited about it. And then you know what we do? We talk about something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy, I am coming at you with a lot of Kingdom Hearts 3 energy. Do I play Kingdom Hearts? I don't. I sure don't. But you know what I want to talk about? I watched a lot of videos about it.
So Sam and I, as you just said, we're friends in real life, and Sam has been like texting me and like giving me a lot of information and tidbits to watch about the Kingdom Hearts series, and I'm a little worried about this because this could come off as one of those things where, because we don't know a lot about it, it's like when you're listening to people talk about some Marvel thing or like something you're really passionate about, and they're just like, yeah, and like they just do this dumb thing, like who knows what it's all about, and there is just someone being like, I know everything about this.
First of all, those people are going to be fine.
Okay.
You know what? People who are upset with inaccuracies stopped listening to this show a long time ago. I'm going to give you two things. Number one, I want to give a call back to episode 1 when we talked about Supernatural. I did see a clip of Supernatural. I am not more sure that it's a show. I did see video footage of it on a television in a restaurant. I am not more convinced it's a show because do you know what happened in this 25-second clip of Supernatural?
What?
The boys, who may be angels, maybe demons, walked into a room, and there was a very scared little kid, and then a ghost popped out that kind of just looked like a ghost in a bedsheet, and then they shot it with guns a bunch, and it died. Okay. That's what happened in the show Supernatural. The real, definitely real, probably not show Supernatural, they just shot a ghost in the face, and then that was the show. And then they got on top of it, and they shot it more in the face. I don't know if it's a real show. Number 2, a lot of Kingdom Hearts. I just want to give you one little tidbit. This is a real thing in the real plot of this game. There's a bad guy named Ansem. Wait. There's a bad guy named Xehanort who's studying under a guy named Ansem. And then he does something magic where he splits himself in two. And for clarity, he names one of his bodies Xemnas.
Yeah.
And the other one Ansem. The name of a character we've already met. He doesn't look like him. He just also named himself Ansem. So that's confusing. So there are 2 Ansems for reasons I don't understand. And then as the series goes on, there's about 11 Xehanorts. And I don't know why, but they just keep renaming all the characters the same names, and it is baffling. It is a baffling series because you watch it and you're like, why is this so complicated? Like, why did you do that? Anyway, look.
So I did watch the thing you told me to watch. That it's like a 33-minute YouTube video where this guy attempts to break down this very expansive lore of the Kingdom Hearts games that I didn't know about because I was of the impression that Kingdom Hearts was just this game where you were some anime guy with a key and like Disney characters are there. So you just Disneyed around for a little bit. Right. I did not realize that the Disney lore is totally inconsequential to the lore that this game is building for itself.
Yeah, there's a lot that's not Disney.
Yeah, so much. And it almost even feels like that show Once Upon a Time, I think it's called, where they use characters from fairy tales and then later Disney to construct these like wild and incredibly complex and intricate webs of stories that are just like, I guess it makes sense when you are dealing with a long-lasting show like 9 seasons and you're like, okay, we got to come up with something to keep the readers or the watchers enjoyed with this, something at least, and it becomes kind of soap opera-y. But with Kingdom Hearts, they don't need any of that. Like, I didn't know until yesterday that there was more than 2 games. I thought there was Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. No. There's like tiny, like, packs of games that exist just to further this lore with almost no Disney characters in them. Just to, like, and just, it seems to me that they're complicating it for reasons just for funsies, presumably.
It's a
because, like,
series.
as you go into the game, just seemingly out of nowhere, we do a prequel to about 10 years before we meet the main cast. Fine. Those characters look a lot like the characters that we know, but they are in no way, shape, or form related. And it's like, well, that's a weird choice to make.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying about the Ansem thing. It's like, you could have picked any name. Why would you do the same name? Like, why would you have your characters have the same name? And, like, why would you have characters that all look alike that aren't related? Like, it's just like, no, these are just also characters. Like, but you made them look identical. And it was like, yeah, it's unrelated. It has nothing to do with, they're not connected.
It very much. Yeah. Well, and then, like, there's even, like, so once you go back 10 years, then one of those characters gets caught in a very unnecessary, like, vortex that throws her through time. And then to deal with that problem that they totally did not have, they came up with time travel as a way to mend things together, making things way more complicated. And then just seemingly for funsies, they went all the way back to this thing called the Key War. Which is it's just kind of interesting. You went all the way back to this thing called the Key War, and then, like, talked about where the keys come from, which is a question that nobody was asking.
No, they're keys that are also swords. Here's another example. And again, I want to get back to my original point, but here's another example. There's the Keyblade, the one we all know about, that is a key, but it's also a sword. That's what, like, the whole game revolves around.
Yeah.
Then you find out in, like, the web browser mini game that is a part of the story that Terra Xehanort, who is young, Ansem Xehanort, and who cares? It doesn't matter. Some other Xehanort, for some godforsaken reason, is trying to summon the Keyblade, which is a totally different sword, but they use the, like, Latin symbol. It looks like an X, but it's key, and so you pronounce it Keyblade. But there's already another thing called the Keyblade that we are all really familiar with. And then the whole series is actually revolving around a different key. Here's what I'm trying to say. I'm coming at you with a lot of Kingdom Hearts energy. But we agreed to have an episode about the Fyre Fest. And we need to have an episode about the Fyre Fest. That is what I'm trying to say. I got a lot. And we could talk for a long time. That's why we have a show together. We need to not talk about Kingdom Hearts. Is what I'm trying to tell you.
I want to talk about Kingdom Hearts more for just a second. And I think like, if we kind of dial it back into, like, the motivations for why we get so upset at these things, I think one of the reasons is that you can't make a medium. You can't do a book or a TV show or a video game in this sense that willfully breaks its own rules. Like, you made the rules. You control this universe.
Why
are you breaking why are you breaking? And then, because like, onto the Keyblade thing, it's shaped like an X. And if you look into the series, all of the boy, oh boy, does this get in the weeds for just a second. If you die, I guess, I don't know, in the game, you are put into 2 forms of yourself happen. There is a Heartless, which is
this is so bizarre.
The little monster. You become a Heartless, which is a tiny monster, and it's what your heart turns into when or soul or whatever, like, becomes into. And because your soul has left your body, you are now, your husk that was once somebody becomes a nobody.
Right.
Sure, fine, yeah, okay.
No, not fine. here's what happens. If they
had stuck with it just there, it would have been fine. But then they went totally bananas.
That's crazy, because if it's a heart without a body, they call it a heartless, and a body without a heart, they call a no body. That's bananas. Why wouldn't you just flip them around? Why wouldn't the ones that are hearts without bodies be nobodies, and the bodies without hearts be heartless? Why would they do that?
I'm fine with the terminology of it. It's whatever. It's fine. My main beef with this comes whenever it's like, okay, so you always turn into a heartless, and you always turn into a nobody.
Sure.
And it's like, fine, sure, yeah. And then you meet all of these characters that all mysteriously have these Z's in their, or these X's in their names. And all of them seemingly have the exact same name, because you can only make so many sounds with an X.
Sure.
And you're meeting all of these characters, and then way later we find out that if you are strong-willed enough, both your heartless and your nobody will have distinct personalities and will be they'll be different people.
They'll become different people.
Yeah, this little gang of people with all the X's in their names, they're actually, in fact, strong-willed nobodies that have fallen under the service of the main bad guy, and the X is put on them to track them, which leads into this, like, the gang is called the 13...
Organization
I don't know what it's
13.
called. Yeah, Organization 13, which, fine. And
whatever.
all of them are trying
to... part.
All of them are trying to find the Keyblade, and like the key is shaped like an X, which is why all their names have X's in them, because they're evil. And it's just like, you didn't have to do that. You could have just introduced us to characters and it would have been fine. You didn't have to get lost in the weeds with this, like, if you are, but they get lost in the weeds immediately. Like, Kingdom Hearts 2 starts with Sora's nobody, who is strong-willed and is his own thing. And if I was just playing Kingdom Hearts and I was like, cool, I beat that game, and then years and years later you just find Kingdom Hearts 2 and it's like, oh, I'll play this one. No, you won't, because there is so much background information you need before you could even play Kingdom Hearts 2. You have to have like all this crazy information before you can even like have a general consensus of what you're even doing.
This is, for perspective, a game where your two companions are Donald Duck and Goofy. Like, that's Donald Duck and Goofy.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
A game for kiddos. You don't need all of this like wild mythology and wild tapestry, which like even there are like Greek legends and like Roman legends of their mythology that aren't this complicated.
It's it's really funny to watch like Kingdom Hearts full lore videos or whatever, because the one that I showed you, which I think it's called A Good Enough Summary of the Kingdom Hearts Storyline, and that one's very funny. But some of them are like earnest, and they don't they go a lot quicker, and they like just sort of are reading off of Wikipedia, which is less entertaining, because they don't think it's as stupid, right? Like, they're not as like exasperated as the guy from the Good Enough video. But it's so bonkers because they'll do it in order. They'll do it in chronological order from the story, not in like as the games come out. I was watching one, and they're just like, and then Aqua went through time, and she was in the darkness realm, and and it's all these like Final Fantasy-esque characters from all of the later games before you catch up to Kingdom Hearts 1. So it's like 7 minutes into this video of all these like crazy named Final Fantasy characters, and then they're like, but then came along a Keyblade master, Mickey Mouse. And it's like, oh, right, I forgot. Mickey Mouse is like the strongest guy is Mickey Mouse. What are you doing?
I don't like, I think I'm going to look into the development of these games. Cause like how, if it was a Final Fantasy, from what I'm getting out of it, it seems like a very Final Fantasy-esque game with Final Fantasy-esque gameplay.
There's Final Fantasy characters in it. Yeah,
but you're just chucking like Disney characters into it.
So crazy.
Like, how did they get those licensing rights and all that stuff, and like the voice actors and everything to make this possible?
I have absolutely no idea.
That is like such a tall order, and it becomes this like wild thing. But I think that this pieces itself into this new thing that games are doing now. I've noticed this happen, and I don't play video games ever. But yeah, exactly. But I know a lot of things about them because of this like weird thing they're doing, where games, especially ones that have a long running series, find themselves getting this really expansive lore. I don't know if you've noticed this. Like a while ago, I was just hearing a lot of racket about this game called Five Nights at Freddy's. And Five Nights at Freddy's is this game where you play a security guard and you have to check cameras and open doors, and you have to do them in such a way where, like, let's say every time you open a door, like your energy meter will go down. Every time you look at the cameras, your energy meter will go down. So you have to be very smart with the way that you look around, or these, here we go, animatronic, Chuck E. Cheese looking monsters will get you. But they'll get you by like coming into like your frame, like your lens, and going like, bah! And that like, scares you, and then you're dead. So
it's a spooky game.
It's a spooky game, yes, very spooky. And part of the allure of this game is it is so very low budget, so low to the ground, and it relies a lot on you filling in the gaps of suspicion. So this game, I don't know the exact number, but it has several sequels. So many sequels. And all the sequels are to the mechanics, the exact same game. Like you're a security guard or you're blankety blank or whatever, and you are trying to make sure you don't get jump scared by these monsters. Sure. And fine. As the game goes on, you can find, it is wild. You can find all of these people that they have pieced together the lore, and the lore is bananas. The lore is goes back to the 80s when these robots were invented, and inside of the robots are the souls of children that have grown up and want to kill other children. Oops. And it is crazy. And it goes on and on and on and on. And it is so expansive and so huge. And I found this thing, I found a emulator of it online, and I was like, this is just a sitting and clicking game. Why does it need a lore? It's fine to not have a lore. You could just be and this is it, and whatever, who cares?
It'd be like if Cookie Clicker was about the World War I or something. It turns out actually if you click the cookies just right, you'll read the Treaty of Versailles.
Yeah. And all of these games have just found themselves in these very expansive lores, and you can trace it back to, and most all of it actually is in the background. You don't need the lore to get through the game, but some people just really want to see what the creator is thinking. So for example, in the what are those games called? The ones Dark where Souls. there's you're underwater and there's a big monster who has
BioShock.
Yes, BioShock. Those games have a gigantic lore behind them, and people go out of their way to find what it is. The same thing with the Fallout series and the Snake, whatever his name is, and all this stuff. They have these incredibly expansive lores.
Metal Gear Solid.
Metal Gear Solid and Uncharted and whatever. And I think people want it to. It's one of these things that I'm both into and not into.
Right.
One, I really enjoy world building, and it's hey, if you're going to make a game, you're going to make a world, and we have to live in this world with you, which is fine, but and really, really good, and really good for the medium. But it just seems it's getting to a really weird too much point, especially in the way of Kingdom Hearts. You don't need I do not need all of this lore. That is totally fine. I can miss it. Miss me with that lore. It's fine. But
it's the only video game I've ever played, which is Dark Souls. And that video game is, and part of why I love it is, if you don't look for it, there is no story. You show up in a place and they say, you need to ring these 2 bells. Goodbye, and then you just spend the entire game trying to ring 2 bells, and then there's a second act where it's you need to, that you have to do a second thing, and then the game's over. You have 2 tasks. It's ring these 2 bells and then do this second thing, and then the game's over. It's amazing. It's a very good game. But of course, I like got on the internet and was like, oh, what is going on with this game that I like? And in all of the item descriptions, like if you pick up a sword, it'll be like, oh, this sword was made by this person who is from this town. And like if you read all of the item descriptions in the whole game, you get like, you find out what happened and like why this world is the way it is. But you could totally miss it. You could just be like, oh, I gotta kill it.
Yeah.
I gotta ring these two bells, you know?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that might find yourself in the, like, in the way of like good lore and bad lore. Like,
well, it's optional. It's like totally, like, you can just enjoy the game. Like, what it sounds like Five Nights at Freddy's is not
you can
a
absolutely,
good game.
Well, I mean, no, they don't hit you in the face with the lore. Like, you're just like you're playing this game, and then if you piece the puzzle, if you put all the puzzle pieces together, you find this out.
That's what I'm saying is like, Dark Souls is a fun, like, action game.
Yeah.
And then also
like,
there's cool lore.
Five Nights at Freddy's is like, it's the same game over and over and over again.
It's like not a good game.
Yeah. And so like putting lore into it's kind of weird, but like with Kingdom Hearts, it almost seems like it is. It like your enjoyment of it is directly linked to how much of the world you know about, you know, like, and I think it's one of those things where one of the reasons why you and I both have respect Adventure Time, because they don't hit you in the head with the lore of that show.
No.
Like you find this, you're in this world, it's called Ooh, and then it's like, fine, yeah, sure. But if you are willing to put the pieces together, you can find out that there is like this massive expansive thing that has happened in the past, and it's totally fine if you don't know that. But having like them walk past a rundown like car from our world, like, oh, look, something looks like a car that we would drive, is like, oh, that's because it kind of takes you out of like, oh, that's weird. But those characters never linger on it. They're never like, this is a car, because like you would never
live in that world.
Yeah, because you would never act that way if you lived there. You wouldn't be like, what's going on with this? It's like, this is just whatever this is. I don't know.
There's no like, as you know, Bob, of like, as you know, Bob, these cars are here because of the mushroom war. Like that doesn't happen, because they're like, no, of course, like we don't need to talk about this because we both know. And so you piece it together.
Yeah. So I think that's like one of the like, in with I keep almost calling it Final Fantasy. With Kingdom Hearts, it's very much like, this is what's going on, this is why it's happening, da 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 da, and it's like, this is too much, bud. Like, we're getting really lost in the sauce. Yeah, that's
it's like kind of to the opposite, where it's like you kind of have to understand the lore to know. I don't know. I haven't played any of these games, so maybe you don't. But I've seen a lot of videos of like, this is what's going on. It's like, well, I mean, like, I feel like I cannot play this game and understand what's happening.
That's true. Yeah, like if you didn't have to know lore to play the game, then why is it so important? Like, why do they go out of their way to put it into like every? Like, I heard that one of them is like a cutscene that you can't skip from, and it's just like you're just watching this little movie in front of you. Like, I don't know what is going on. Who are these people?
Right. Why do they all have the same name? Why is there so many replicas? Like, why are there so many Rikus? Like, what's going on? And then Riku takes off his blindfold, and he's Xehanort also. And it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, why? Like, why is he also Xehanort? Like, why don't you just have two names?
Yeah, and it's so weird to see that they have like made a lot of missteps in their own construction of that universe, because they were breaking rules and trying to fix those rules, and it's like, we didn't need any of this.
Yeah, like Anyway, I got all my Kingdom Hearts energy out.
Okay, well, I was going to talk about how this relates to our hatred of Doctor Who, or like
we've gone over it so many times.
So I
re-listened to the episode, so I've heard it a lot.
I think it's like, it's because the things that trigger you and myself included are like kind of the same things, but have manifested themselves in different areas. Like, this is just another thing where it's like, you made a medium, you broke your own rules. Why did you do that? It would have been so easy to not do that, it like goes on like that.
In equal parts, I enjoy thoughtfulness and hate carelessness. Like, carelessness in art makes me frustrated in a deep way.
A pup named Scooby-Doo. We've been there.
It's so careless. Yeah, just like care. Just care is all I'm asking. Just think about it and care.
which in the last episode is we talked about Into the Spider-Verse, which is why I love it so much, is you can definitely see that there is so much care in each frame of that movie where like everything matters in a way, like, and also it's like, hey, if we're going to put this character in this movie, we're going to get him right. And if we put like, if we do this and this and this, it's going to make sense, and everything is going to have consequences, and it's going to be like the one scene that I referenced in that Lost episode that I'll reference just before we get to the Fyre Festival thing, there's a sequence in Into the Spider-Verse where Spider-Man Noir, who is a detective in the 1930s, he is fighting with this character named Tombstone, and he takes off his hat and puts his hat in someone else in his face, and then he punches his hat and then puts his hat back on, which seems wild, and like that's a weird thing to do. But if you go back and watch old noir movies, detective characters do that thing all of the time, inexplicably. They have on these fedoras, and when they're in like a bar fight sequence or they're trying to rough someone up, they'll take off their hat, put it like into the person's face, and then punch their face with the hat in front of it, and then put their hat back on. It is wild and silly, and it's just like, that's a weird thing they did. So to have that animated in the movie means that a whole team of people were probably watching noir movies to get a good sense of how this character would be, rather than just like making fun of like noir based on how it's culturally perceived. They actually went back and examined all of these movies and media to be like, okay, we're going to make fun of this. We're going to make fun of this era for like the way they talk or whatever, but we're going to get it right. And that is just like the care in that scene alone is just like, you guys really showed up to bat in this one, like this whole movie. So yeah, I think that's like a great example of like caring in the art you make, in the media you make, and just like showing up and just actually putting in the work and making it great.
I think that's a good way to put it, of like wanting to represent something as it actually is, not as it's culturally perceived, and just doing the little bit of legwork to like, hey, let me check that my assumptions about this are actually true. Mm-hmm. And I'm not like, of course, my old saw about Frankenstein movies, but we'll save that for another day. We'll talk about Frankenstein another day. Unless it's not in one of the Lost episodes, and I already
let's talk about the real Frankenstein that was put together very haphazardly.
Become the monster.
Fyre Festival.
Fyre Festival. So, you watched the Hulu documentary and the Netflix one. I have only seen the Netflix one.
Oh, what?
I don't have Hulu.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense.
Hey, everybody, sign up for our Patreon, and Sam will get Hulu. Whatever.
There was like a week or two when Hulu was only 99 cents. And if you got it during that time, it was 99 cents every month for the whole year, was... So I'm getting Hulu... Like, I was already getting Hulu bundled with my Spotify.
Right.
And which is like for $1 extra, or like for like $3 extra. And I got rid of that one just so I could save a grand total of $24 in 2019.
Wow, you're really moving up in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, big spender.
Hey, big spender. Yeah, so what were your thoughts? Fyre Festival. What was your... let me ask this first. What was your perception of Fyre Festival before the document? Like, when it happened? Because we talked about it a little bit when it was happening, but like, what was your feelings when it happened?
Well, it was just one of those things where I think I was in the crowd of people that were just, making fun of like this. It was just, let's make fun of these people for spending all this money to this thing. But I was fully unaware of it while it was going on.
Right.
Like I only knew about it in retrospect. Like I heard about it on like, people were memeing it out of existence. It was being absolutely destroyed and annihilated. And that's when I found out about it. I never saw the orange tile post. I never like got a piece of that video. I didn't see what was going on there because I just wasn't existing in that internet world. And I still don't. Right. So I had no clue it was even like happening. I was not wrapped up in the like insanity of it prior to going in, because I only heard about it when it was like after the fact.
Right, when like the cheese sandwich came on Twitter. And that's when I heard about it too. Was like, oh yeah, there's this thing that happened, and they stayed in FEMA tents. Like, I really got kind of a passing thing.
Mm-hmm.
What really got me interested in the Fyre Festival is months later, Internet Historian, who's a YouTube account, did like a retrospective on Fyre Festival, and he was like breaking down like how we got here, basically, where it was like, and I remember the image that got me hooked on like, oh wait a minute, what happened? Was like when they showed the map of the island, and then he was like, this is photoshopped, and then he kind of does a crossfade to the Google Earth. He's like, what they did was they took a picture, or they took a drawing of the peninsula that this is, and then they just put blue around it and called it an island. Like, it's on an island technically, yes. Like, it is on a Bahamas island, like, yes. But the part that they're staying on is not an island. Like, the part they're staying on is a little hook off of this bigger island. And so it's like,
yeah,
just like the fraud in marketing was like, oh wait, because you wonder, like, you see it and you're like, FEMA tents, like, how did this happen? Cheese sandwiches, how did this happen? They didn't have mattresses, they didn't have, like, how do you go? And when I started seeing a lot of the marketing behind it, like the pre stuff, then I was very, very interested in, and I was happy to see that the Netflix documentary went into a lot of that, of like, let's walk through how we got here, because it seemed, unless it was just like blatant money laundering, which it doesn't seem that it was. I mean, I think the guy did launder a bunch of money, but that was not the goal. Like, the goal did earnestly seem to be put on a music festival, right? Was that your impression?
I mean, so right. It just very much, so this guy, what is his name? Yeah, so he was trying. It's like this very weird thing that I want to get to. Like, I think the Hulu documentary did one where the Netflix one, it did a better job of saying exactly what happened, in a very, like, this is by the numbers, every last day, this is how it went down. And the Hulu one did a good job of, like, piecing together what, kind of like why this happened, like what are we learning about ourselves, and what are we going to, like, take away from this experience. And the the thing that happened was, it was this guy who was trying to make his own, like, get in contact with celebrities in this app called the Fyre app. And it was like get in contact with these celebrities to book them for events.
Good idea. His idea was a good idea.
Yeah. A very good idea. And I think that the music festival came super secondary, like way down the line, as if, like, we're going to throw, like, I think his attitude about it was like, yeah, and we'll throw together a music festival, and that'll be like our thing, Like, iHeartRadio has their, like, little, like, award show. Like, this person does this organization does this, and we'll have a little festival in the Bahamas.
Which makes perfect sense, right?
Exactly.
It's like an app that says, like, we can make booking talent really easy. You know how we're going to show it? We're going to book a lot of really good talent. That makes perfect sense. What a good idea. Like, a music festival is a good idea for an app that is also a good idea.
Yeah. So and I think that, like, but then again, when you get further down into it, I don't think they even knew what they were doing with the app. It's a good idea that capitalizes on, and, like, this is kind of the story of Billy, is his whole thing was he wanted to capitalize on exclusivity and to make people jealous of what you had that they don't have, and to have a celebrity be at, like, a very private party. Well, that is extremely exclusive. And that was kind of building upon this mentality. And I think that, like, the foundational idea of what that was they had the idea, and they had a end goal, but, like, in that episode of South Park, it was like step 1, step 2, step 3, question mark, step 4, profit. Right. I think they were very much in that step 3, question mark. They did like they didn't know what they were doing, and but going into it, they were very vain. And I think that is like other than some of like his money laundering things and things like that, or like he had an ability to raise money in the way that you would raise money in a Ponzi scheme, or like if you go even farther down, like people on the street that are playing a cup and ball game where it's like, I'm going to like, in order to double their payment, I have no money. I need to win money off of you, but I need to make you think that I have money. So you'll think that I can give you something, but it's like this whole thing where it's like, I'm going to trick you into you giving me your money and then you giving me your money again for the promise of getting your own money back. Right. Like very, very swindly, very like sleight of hand magic sort of stuff. But it's on this like insane scale.
And that was what was so interesting to me. An internet historian went into it, and they didn't go into the Netflix documentary, which I was surprised. But like, you see the marketing, which is these cabanas that are like nice and they're huts, and then they're like, oh, or you can get a villa, and they're like a private house. And then there's, you know, a yacht party, and there's all this great food, and there's all this stuff. And what was so confusing to me is like, and the tickets were like super expensive, and it's like, Robert, frequent guest on the show, Robert, made fun of me one time because we're at a farmer's market, him and I, and there was this woman selling tie-dye. And we were talking about the market for tie-dye. Like, what is the market for tie-dye? How many people are going to buy tie-dye in this? It was in Bowling Green. And it was like, how many people are going to buy tie-dye in this small, conservative Kentucky town that this woman can make this a business? And I said something, and I said, I wonder what her spreadsheet looks like. And Robert made fun of me because he's like, Sam, she doesn't have a spreadsheet. And I was like, what do you mean she doesn't have a spreadsheet? She's running a business. She obviously has a spreadsheet where she writes the cost of her product versus how much she makes per month, and then she tracks her results over time. And he's just like, no, that is not what that woman is doing. And it never occurred to me to like not have a spreadsheet for everything. And I asked the same question about the Fyre Festival. It's like, surely they had a spreadsheet where they totaled up all the cost, and then they divided it by the number of people, and that's how they got the ticket price, right? Because they say in the documentary they sold 98% of their tickets on day one. And then they spend the rest of the documentary not having enough money. And it's like, how? How do you not have enough money? Didn't you get any, like... And, like, at the end of the documentary, right, they're talking about, like, oh, he charged, you know, $125,000 to my personal credit card. Oh, yeah, he didn't pay us. He owes us $250,000. Oh, yeah, I lost $3 million in investment. And it's like, wait a minute. How? Like, where's all the money? And an internet historian goes into this, too. But I don't know. I trust these documentaries more than this guy. But they were talking about, like, nobody paid full price for the tickets. Like, there were all these deals and discounts and something, and, like, nobody was paying $5,000 for a ticket. They were all paying, like, $150 or something. And I don't understand why that... It's just, the fundamental thing that I do not understand about this is why didn't they have the money? Like, why did he have to raise money? Didn't they have a spreadsheet that just said it's going to cost this? And you see all these interviews with all these, like, artists, and they're talking to the artist, where they're like, yeah, they were going to pay this guy 2 times his normal rate to be at Fyre Fest. And it's like, why? Like, that had to have been on a piece of paper somewhere, right? Like, they had to have known when they started, like, it's going to cost this much money, so we need to charge this much money, and that's it, right? That was just baffling to me. I didn't understand how they didn't have any money. It didn't make any sense.
Well, I think that it's like the Ponzi scheme thing, you know, where you say you have more money than you do to entice investors, and then the money you're getting from those investors is the money that you promised that was already there. So it's like,
so Billy
let's
has
say
the money.
Where's
the money?
So I mean, I don't think they're like, it's like you are like in those old cartoons where it's like, you know, Mickey or whomever is like putting on the railway track as the train's coming at him, you know, like it's just you're building the thing as you say you're building the thing and you're saying it's already built.
You're putting the track. You're talking about putting the track in front of you from the front of the train. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So like I'm saying to you, hey, I have $3 million or whatever, and it's like you want to double this investment of their $3 million, and it's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. This seems like a good business opportunity. And the $3 million that you gave them, like that you gave me, I was lying about the first $3 million, you know? And so, and I'm kind of using that to make this stockpile of the same thing that Bernie Madoff did. Like it only exists as money keeps going in, you know, but money wasn't coming in because a ton of money was going out because they were promising insane amount of money to all of the acts as well as the catering and like all that stuff. So by the end of it, they had nothing or they didn't have anything to begin with, you know?
So they just went over. So if there was an initial budget of like, this is how much it cost, and that's how they decided the ticket price, he just overpromised past that, assuming that investor money would just come in.
I mean, I have no idea. Like I said, I think it's just
any sense to me.
Yeah. But I think that because they talked about having those spreadsheets, and they were it's wire fraud, you know, like you're saying you're paying these people the money, but you're not. And like,
is that what wire fraud is? I didn't really understand what wire fraud was.
Yeah, wire fraud is like it's you're wiring money, and it's almost like saying like that old like con where it's like, oh, my check's in the mail. Like you would buy yourself time by saying my money's in the mail. And so based on what I can understand, what he did is he would take doctor little like wire fraud receipts and then send them to the people. And they weren't receipts. He had photoshopped them together.
So that's the crime.
So you just assume the money is in your bank, but it's not. And then you're doing a service, and then like once you like get out your magnifying glass and you look at the receipt, it's like, oh, this is fake. This is not a real receipt. There is no money.
I'm never gonna get paid. I see. Here's my thing, and like blah 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 millennials, blah 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 FOMO. But like, I genuinely don't understand why you wouldn't just do a smaller festival. Why wouldn't you just do a festival you could afford and it make money? That seems so much easier. It seems easier than crime. Crime seems very hard. It's what I really don't get about it is like, hey, why didn't you just do... I mean, I guess people wouldn't have paid $5,000. It just seems weird. It seems a weird choice to be like, we're going to promise villas, but we haven't booked the villas, and we also have to build the villas. But there's no way that they even, if they had stayed on the first island, which losing the first island was very funny and also like crazy, where it was like the guy, that's another choice. Okay, never mind. The first island will wrap up what I'm trying to say. They rent the island from the guy, and it's an island that was formerly owned by Pablo Escobar. And the guy explicitly tells them, do not mention Pablo Escobar. I own this island. I want to rebrand it. I do not want it to be associated with Pablo Escobar anymore. Do not ever say Pablo Escobar. And we're cool. And they have the island, and they have it rented. Now, there are a million billion problems with it being on that island, because over and over people keep telling them, we have no plumbing, there are no houses, there is no food. Like, so it is kind of better that they ended up on the like peninsula, because they could like walk to shelter. Like, they spend several hours at that restaurant because they're just like, well, this is the only civilization. Like, the place that you've got for us is nothing. So it is probably better. But anyway, do not mention Pablo Escobar. The first video, the only video, the promotional video, the first thing you see is water and then text that comes up that's like, on an island owned by Pablo Escobar. And then the guy who owns the island, kicks them out and says, no, you broke our contract. I told you not to say that very sternly, and you did it anyway. Goodbye. And they had to find a new place. And it's one of those things where, like, I just don't understand. Why don't you just not say the one thing? Just don't say the one thing, and then you get to have it.
That's marketing, baby.
That's not good marketing.
I mean, that's another thing. Like so much of it is just like that's the funniest thing that happened.
It's very funny
because like clearly like they're trying to capitalize on what it means to be like as I said earlier, they're trying to capitalize on exclusivity. And what it means to, like, this is something that you, like, this island, like, you can't say every island's been a Pablo Escobar island. Like, this is something cool that we found out. And I'll be darned if we don't say we, like, nailed this.
I know. But here's the other option. You could have, you can still say it's Pablo Escobar Island in your thing. Why don't you use your superpower of being able to sweet talk everyone into everything and sweet talk the guy that owns the island into saying it's okay?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you just do that? But, like, why would you, if he explicitly told you, like, I'm going to be super pissed and you can't stay here if you say this, be like, I'm just going to say it anyway. It's like, that's way worse for you. Because, again, I get what you're saying, like, oh, it's marketing. But it's not marketing if you don't get to stay on that island.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then it ends up where, like, and this is the thing they talked about throughout where they're like, I don't understand, dude. The festival's gonna happen. Like, if there are not housing, people are coming here. People are booking flights. And if it's like, this is Pablo Escobar's island, and you show footage of this island, and then it's not on that island anymore, and there are people throughout telling them, like, lower or change people's expectations. Do not tell them we're still going to be on that island, because we're not. And he's just like, nah, it's good. And it's really not.
Yeah, that will like that kind of leads in because so much of it is like that. So much of it has like that. One of my favorite things from the Netflix documentary was that one guy who was doing the yoga instructing. He was like, he sent this giant email and was like, people are coming tomorrow, and like, guess what? We have nothing. Like, if they come here, like, it's over. Like, it is. It's all like there is no amount of bad press that will be worse than them getting here. Right. Like, if you say, hey, it's canceled, then as far as they know, it was canceled for some other reason. Yeah. And they'll never know it was canceled because of some apocalyptic, like, nightmare hellscape that you're going to put them through if you bring them here. And everyone's just like, LOL tight. Like,
that's what he says. He's like, yeah, but they'll be looking at your smiling face at yoga. And it's like,
yeah,
bro, are you okay? That's the thing. And that's what's so, that's what got me interested in the first place. And that's why, like, I don't get it.
But I think, like, it had become one of those things that at the end, like, at the beginning, obviously this is a terrible situation, but at the end, it had to go on. It was like, I don't know if you've ever seen The Producers, but it's like, whether or not this is going to be a success or a failure, we need to get this money. So,
but the difference is The Producers, they were trying to make something bad on purpose. Yeah. They were purposefully trying to make it horrible.
Yeah,
and he was like, "No, this is gonna be good. This is gonna work out."
But I think, like, towards the end of it, the show had to go on because he needed to make the money that he said he already had for those investors that he promised to pay back.
Right, but here's my thing, and this goes back to the spreadsheet. They aren't gonna pay more money when they get there. They've already paid.
Well, no,
there's no new money.
There was those bracelets,
the brand, which they didn't go into, but I feel like, if I understand this right, they have the bracelets and they're like, hey, I know you paid a bunch of money, but they send out an email. They're like, put cash on these bracelets. Most people put $3,000. All that money was just to fund the festival, right? None of that was actually going anywhere, right? That was just to fund the festival.
Yeah, that was
they glossed right over it.
But I think one thing, because I saw the Hulu documentary, and in our last couple of minutes, one thing I really want to touch on that I thought was the most interesting part of the Fyre Festival for me was that this is a grift. It is like a gigantic grift where you trick someone into thinking that you have leverage or you're going to get something out of it. And it's like this giant weird swindle. Like whether or not it was supposed to, like, this is like a grift that went horribly wrong, but had it gone right, it would have been like the best grift ever. And it's this really weird thing that like, it's the bell curve you and I talk about, where once you have too much of something, you end up like kind of going back to the way you were before, where when like grifts would happen was like in the 1920s, or like when those kind of swindles would go down when people had no information. Now you're following the train of no information, and then we go up the bell curve and we have this information superhighway, where everyone is like super smart all the time, where and we have the internet and we can like know all of human civilization. And then at some point we get too oversaturated with information that we're living in this weird age where you can be a con man again, like just by putting forth like the loudest voice in all of this noise of information that's happening in an age where you don't really know what's true and what's fact. And we're like kind of living when like people are still assuming that things are true, and it's this really weird time. And it kind of, the implication is that you can very easily in this day and age, even though we think we're so smart and we have all of these tools at our disposal, you can be a con man again. Like you can be an old school grifter and just use these like old tricks. Like as I like, that's the reason I brought up like the spinning the cups around and like tricking people into thinking they have more than they do. But it's just that very small game that you would see on like the streets of Brooklyn, but just on a massive scale where it's like you're continually switching and like moving things around where no one knows what's going on. And it creates all of this confusion. And in the confusion, the loudest voice is the one you trust the most. And then they just get away with it.
Yeah. I said this earlier, but like crime seems so hard and I don't really get it. Like I don't understand crime. I don't understand Fyre Festival. And I think his whole deal and why it's so confusing to me is the last part of the Netflix documentary where they go on to his next grift, right? Mm-hmm. Where the plan is he's going to now walk through this plan. He's going to email people from an email address offering tickets to events that he does not have the tickets for. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And we have footage of him doing this because he gets his friends, not friends, but he hires his friends who are like camera people to bring their cameras over, and he looks at them, he's like, yeah, man, this is going to be huge. It's going to be great. Record everything. Mm-hmm. And they're recording it. And I don't understand the plan. Like, you don't have tickets to a meet and greet with Taylor Swift.
But like, so and also like, the plan? But even that exactly. Even that like on a smaller degree, because this is once again, this is a grift. And this is something that he had did before he had this other company called Magnesis, which was like kind of a similar thing where they had said that, I don't know if this is in the Netflix one, but they said that he would just be like buying the tickets at the box office, handing the people the tickets that he had promised he'd got them way earlier. And he was like, because like, he was saying he was selling them for cheaper than they were being sold. And so he's taking like the hit on those profits because he's buying the tickets straight up at the box office and then giving them the tickets for the ticket or for the price that they promised to pay. So it's like, what? Like, what's
the plan?
Yeah, so what's in game there? But like the one that I think is the most interesting is, okay, so that's fine because like feasibly you can get those tickets. Like it's going to eat into your profit margin in a way that doesn't make sense for a business. But
that's a dumb plan, but it's not a crime.
But you can get those tickets.
Right, like, that's a thing you could do.
But the one that I'm thinking the most interesting of is the Met Gala a thing that like is generally understood is something you're invited to, and it's like what like. What was the plan there? Like you can't get and Taylor Swift, who does not do meet and greets, like what's the plan?
That's what I don't understand. Is like, you filmed this. If he was just doing like people who sell like boner pills on email, they don't really have boner pills. They're just lying. And they're gonna steal your money. Like the whole like Nigerian prince thing is just a lie, and then when you give them the money, it's like, gotcha. It's a lie. Yeah, gotcha. And that's the end. And then they're gonna eat. But they don't like set up an LLC, Nigerian Prince Inc. and like film themselves and are like, and make a logo and like I'm really excited for this thing. Because it's like, but it's not real, and they're gonna find out like immediately as soon as you don't. And then you're going to keep emailing from the same email address to the same network of people. Like, they're going to know. And use a real name. Not his real name, but
someone's real name, Yeah,
Frank is like a real guy named Frank.
Yeah.
Who was there with him.
Because he was arrested for that one for lying. But I really wanted, and I think a fun thing that could have happened was, let's see how this one plays out. Like,
because I really want to know, like, hey, dude, so then what? Like, what happens when Taylor Swift
and it's like, and it's like, okay, like, all right, so they buy, like, okay, like it's like, it's that step 1, step 2, step 3, question mark. Like, it's, okay. We sell these Met Gala tickets. They buy them. They're suckers. They get totally suckered into it. Yeah. But they have your name, your company's name, and like all this stuff. All right. It's the day of the Met Gala. All right. So walk me through the day. What is the plan? Like,
No. Then after that, walk me. Okay. Here's what I'm trying to say. I understand how it is a scam. I do not understand how it is a business.
Yeah, and like I think the thing, like the what is so baffling about that was how he was, as you said, he's getting his friends to film him doing a crime
and make a logo.
Yeah, and like he's like, man, this is gonna be huge, and no one's like, and like not one person in that room stopped him and was like, hold on,
how?
Like, do you have these tickets? No. Do you have any idea that they do not exist in this universe? Those tickets, the only way you can get those if you go to another universe and snatch them off of someone. There's no way these tickets exist. And it's like
these tickets aren't.
And it's like cool, but keep the camera rolling because this business, you're gonna want this for the analog, the annals later, so that people can see that like this is my garage, baby. This is like where Microsoft starts. This is where Apple starts. This is where whatever the heck this is called starts. And like, why are you excited about it? Like, what are you excited about?
That's what's so bizarre to me is I get how it's a scam. I'm not confused.
But I don't think that it's like, I don't think he thought it was a scam.
Yeah, that's what's crazy.
He wouldn't have acted that way if he knew it was a scam.
Right. It's like, if you're just lying to people on the internet to sell them like fake medicine, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I get that you're just, it's a lie. It'd be like if a bum on the street set up like, got like branded t-shirts, but then was like, oh, hey man, I really just need some money for a sandwich. And it's like, but you have branded t-shirts and business cards about how your business is to say you need money for a sandwich. Like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But like, and that's one of the things that's so interesting about Billy's, like especially, is that he is like, he's a con man,
right?
But I don't think he knows he is.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, the whole story doesn't make any sense.
And one thing that I thought was interesting, I said in the Hulu one, was like, you have to succeed for a very long time to fail on this big of a scale. And so, but like, because if you like his backstory, he didn't come from a lot of money. He's like this
he's just a guy.
Like he's not like some guy. Like he had like a lot of connections, but like he's not like a gigantically like super rich guy. Where it's like, oh yeah, this is my nephew's friend. You know, we'll throw him a bone. It's like people are like, yeah, I believe in this product. What product? What are you talking about? Like
it's I just don't.
Yeah, and it's in conclusion, it's a very, very good time to be a con man, but I just don't think Billy knew he was one or is one. I think he's in jail right now, being like thinking
he is in jail.
He is in jail, like, but I think he's like thinking of schemes or like, but in his head he's like, this is a good idea. This is definitely not going to put me back in jail. This idea is great.
Right. It's like the Fyre Festival, like the day before. It's like, so then what?
Yeah.
Like, what happens next? Like, how does this work? They're going to come here. You put pictures of villas, and you never stopped promoting them.
Yeah.
And you, like, okay, yeah. It's like you took the picture of the peninsula that your island... It's on an island. Again, I think I've made that clear. I think everyone knows what I'm saying. You took a picture of the area that you... and then you made it look like that area was surrounded on all sides by water. So they're coming here. They're gonna know.
Yeah, and it's
right.
Yeah,
what happens after that?
Yeah, it's like it is such an entry level problem. It's not like it's not like, oh, there's this minor bug in the software and it only happens if like X, Y, and Z happen. And if that happens, if someone finds that bug, then we'll like let them know. It's like, hey, we're patching that up. Da 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 da. Where it's like, hey, I paid for a villa. Oh, we don't have villas.
We have wet mattresses. And then
the next question's immediately like, because like you can't be like, oh, they like that problem won't come up. Yeah, it'll be the exact first question they ask. Like, hey, what? Well,
there's no beach. It's a construction site.
Yeah.
Like, how did you not think that they would be mad?
And then there's no bands there. Like that's
no bands. Like, you didn't book any of the people.
Yeah, like that's like I think that was one thing they didn't really talk about that much. But they booked Blink-182. They said they like were in talks with the Good Music family and like Major Lazer, but like. None of them were like, yeah, I'm doing it. Like, all of them were like, yeah, cool, send me the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They all were like, that sounds good for that price. Send me the stuff.
Yeah.
And then they heard from them like 2 weeks before this festival.
Yeah, and they were like, okay, well, yeah, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, because like in the same way that like the people didn't know what their flights were, they didn't, like the venue guys or the artists, they didn't know what their information was either. So it's like, cool, so you've been really weird about this thing, and I'm just going to not show up. Because you're being weird.
The whole thing is really bizarre to me. I don't know. I'm exhausted now.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted thinking about both of these insane.
Yeah, Kingdom
things.
Hearts, Fyre Festival.
Kingdom Hearts and Fyre Festival. I just don't understand.
Yeah.
How people make choices.
Mm-hmm.
All right. See you. Bye forever.
See you. Bye forever.